Well, coming up on today's show, batteries, and some other stories as well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. In fact, wherever you're listening around the world, welcome to EV News Daily. It's a Wednesday, the 12th of December, and my name is Martyn Lee. I've been through every EV story I can find today to bring you the highlights. Thank you very much to the team at myev.com. It's thinking about buying and selling and learning about EVs in a whole new way. It's a free marketplace, so maybe you want to buy an EV, or you're ready to move on and sell yours, or you're still learning about them. Aren't we all? Check out myev.com. Follow them on Twitter at myevcom, and they're always tweeting about really interesting things. Last night they put a tweet out, a checklist of what you'll need to consider before shopping for your first EV, and lots of people are in that boat as well. Check out at myevcom on Twitter. We'll start with some huge news today. Daimler dropped the news this morning that they're dropping some big bucks, 20 billion euros on battery cells. Dieter Zetsche is the chairman of the board of management of Daimler, and he confirmed the news. I quote, "With the purchase of battery cells for more than 20 billion euros, we are systematically pushing forward with the transformation into the electric future of our company," end quote. And board member Wilko Stark said this, and I quote, "With extensive orders for battery cells until the year 2030, we set another important milestone for the electrification of our future electric vehicles of the EQ product and technology brand. In this way, together with our partners, we ensure the supply of our global battery production network today and in the future using our latest technologies," end quote. So big news today, another big battery order from another huge name in automotive, and congratulations to everybody at Daimler who's been working on this deal and moving forward with their electrification, their EQ brand as well, which will be everywhere. Maybe you've seen those YouTube videos of the EQC. Earlier this week there were some YouTube videos of the EQC being crash tested, and I know we have to do it, but whenever there's a gorgeous car like that, and you know they're going to have to destroy them, and that has to be done for safety. But you think, oh, and you see the after pictures. Anyway, so that's been going on. Maybe you've just been watching Formula One this year, and you've seen the EQ power on the side of Lewis's Mercedes. That's how they'll be branding all of their electrification, you see. Daimler's investing more than €1 billion in a global battery production network. Within the worldwide production network of Mercedes-Benz Cars, the company purchases the cells on the world market, and it ensures the best possible technology and focuses on the core competence of actual battery assembly. Now, although they don't say where they're getting their batteries from, I think probably LG, probably SK Innovation and others, but that's my speculation. The global battery production network of Mercedes-Benz Cars will, in the future, consist of 8 factories on 3 different continents. The first factory in Kamenz is already in series production. The second factory there will start series production at the beginning of next year, early 2019, by the way. So it's the way I look at it is interesting, actually, whereas some people have gone down the route of Tesla, for instance, with Panasonic, pretty much they work hand in hand in the Gigafactory, and Panasonic do their bits, Tesla do their bits, but they're so interwoven. Other companies have simply gone with battery supply contracts, going out there and saying, make us the batteries, and here's the spec. And somewhere in between that, obviously it suits their business. Daimler have said, actually, we're going to source the cells, and then we're going to make the batteries because that's going to be one of our competencies. So it's just there's no right or wrong, it's just interesting, right? By 2022, the entire Mercedes portfolio will be electrified. But in perspective, in the next 3 years, the entire portfolio will be electrified. There'll be various electrified alternatives available in every one of their segments, from the smart cars to SUVs. There's going to be 130. And you start talking about these big car companies, and we must always remember the job that they have to do to pivot from a fossil company to an e-mobility company. Some of them have got massive jobs on, like Daimler. 130 variants of their lineup will be electrified. That is going to include, when I say electrified, what I do mean is soft hybrids. So 48-volt soft hybrid. These are essentially fossil cars, but they have a 48-volt system, which falls just below having those. You know, in an EV, if you haven't got an EV, but you've seen pictures and videos, you see those orange leads under the bonnet or in the battery. Those orange leads are high voltage. Well, actually, if you can put a 48 volt battery into a car, into a fossil car. You don't need all the high voltage stuff, and it's a lot cheaper and easier to work on. You don't have to have those orange high voltage leads. So the battery will do something like spin up a turbo or do what an engine would do, which is turn some belts and pulleys and things. The battery can do that. It can shut the engine off at cruising speed, things like that. It's a very, very soft way to electrify a car, but I understand why they want to do that for increased miles per gallon figures. Then there's going to be plug-in hybrids. Then there's going to be pure electrics, and I think Mercedes are working on fuel cell vehicles. Let me do some rough maths, and bearing in mind I'm an idiot on a podcast. 20 billion euros is 22 billion US dollars. Say the cell cost, because we know the cell cost by the end of the year pretty much is down to $100 per kilowatt hour at cell level, not at pack level when you've got inverters and all the other stuff with it, but at cell level. We know that from various sources. Say the average pack size, the average battery was 70 kilowatt hours, which I believe is the EQC, and that's a good size for a nice luxury Mercedes. Well, if you do those maths, then that's just over 3.1 million battery packs. And that's not a lot, because this is a contract between now and 2030, and actually, even my small brain knows that divide that by 10 and you're talking about 300,000 cars, which is actually a small amount. Now, there's nuances to this. Clearly, some of those batteries are going to be 2 or 3 kilowatts if they're in a soft hybrid. Maybe some of them will be 10 to 20 if they're going to be in a plug-in hybrid. And some of them will be 100 kilowatt hour packs in their pure BEVs, in their pure electric cars. If you're new to the podcast, BEV is BEV, battery electric vehicle. Nothing in it but batteries. And so it's not as simple as saying they're going to be making 300,000 electric cars a year, because it's a range of battery sizes. But to me, all the headlines today have gone, wow, 20 billion, that's huge. I'll say the unthinkable. I think it's not a lot. I think it gets you going, but I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years' time, when EVs are taking off, they're selling more of them, that there is more announcements and they have to go back and go to the world market of cells and purchase some more. Because even though it's a crazy large number, I don't think it's that big a number. Says the person that hasn't just written a cheque for 20 billion. Let's move on to some more stories about batteries. I did warn you. LG Chem is expected to begin generating profits from its EV battery operations this quarter. According to Just Auto, the chemicals company's yet to make a profit from its EV battery operations to date, which I think surprises a lot of people. LG Chem, producer of those batteries in many cars, in many EVs, not yet profitable, but they're getting there. According to local analysts, they believe the business has turned a corner as global demand for EVs and plug-in hybrids continues to rise. Raw material costs continue to fall. And due to improving supply, the business is looking bright for LG Chem. They don't disclose separate financials for their EV business, but they reckon that it could be profits of around 173 million US dollars next year in 2019. And that's good. We want these battery companies, cell makers, and the car companies to be making a robust profit on the cars they're making, so they make more of them. We heard that story a few weeks ago on the podcast where Hyundai with the Kona, I call all EVs gorgeous and I always get in trouble. A great car. Look, the best thing about the Kona, in my opinion, is the drivetrain. Wow. The battery, the power, the efficiency, just great. Doesn't make a profit for Hyundai. Now, they're selling it at not an expensive price at the moment, and there is an 11-month waiting list for one here in the UK. But you want them to make a profit, so they make more of them. Moving on to another story about, this is awkward, batteries. CATL, Contemporary Amperex Technologies Limited, is a major Chinese manufacturer of lithium-ion batteries, and they've just opened their first sales and service centre in North America. According to Energy Storage News, the company's made the ascent from supplying just over 2 gigawatt hours of batteries 3 years ago to almost 12 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2017. CATL's North American general manager is Alan Wang, and he said this, and I quote, "Last year was the best year yet for EV sales in the US and around the world. Recent surges in demand require greater innovation in the supply and manufacture of parts and services to support vehicle electrification. Our new Detroit subsidiary, our first in North America, is going to allow us to serve local needs. By locating close to our customers, we'll be better able to understand their needs and improve our global supply chain, end quote. I'll put a link to all of those battery stories in the show notes, and I think it's really fascinating. They all dropped on the same day. Well, forget the Pininfarina PF0. It has a new name. And Pininfarina just announced the upcoming electric hypercar they're working on has a new name. It's officially going to be called the Battista. Yeah, that's a very cool name for a car, right? That's a sexy name for a very fast hypercar. The Battista stems from the first name of Carrozzeria Pininfarina, founder Battista Farina, according to Motor1.com. Pininfarina promises the Battista to be the fastest and most powerful car ever to come from Italy. That's a claim. That's a tall order, given Italy's fame for producing very sporty machines from Ferrari to Lamborghini, amongst many others. The company's going to partner with Rimac on the vehicle's powertrain that they will produce 1,900 horsepower and 1,700 pound-feet of torque. According to the company, the model is going to go 0 to 62 miles an hour in less than 2 seconds. And have a top speed of at least, they say. So it's going to go above this. At least 250 miles an hour. That's 402 Ks. The battery pack is going to be good for 300 miles. That's about 480 Ks on a single charge. You've got $2 million to spare, right? Because that's the price tag. If you do want to drop $2 million of change on that, you can see it in the flesh at the Geneva Motor Show early 2019. And if you have only got $2 million to spare, you still can't afford the next car we'll talk about. Lotus are going to make their first pure electric car, and it's going to be a 1,000 brake horsepower monster. Autocar sources claim Lotus's first EV is going to be about 1,013 horsepower. It's going to be a hypercar costing about $2.5 million. It's going to compete with the likes of the Bugatti Chiron and the McLaren P1, where current models like the Evora are aimed at more ordinary sports cars. And bearing in mind, Lotus these days are backed by Geely. What they say, you can pretty much be sure that's got some money behind it. That might well happen. Well, congratulations to California. Ars Technica reports that in November, California crossed the 500,000 threshold for EVs sold since 2010. Months and months of strong EV sales in the US in 2018, preceded by a very strong 2017, and now showing a trend. EVs are selling well in places where there's strong monetary, even non-monetary incentives to buy them, and California being the original and the inspiration for so many other places. And regular listeners know I'll say the laws over the years that California in particular have put in, and also Europe, well, the EU, the European Union, the rules that they have put in place, because they're such big markets, because California is bigger than most countries, if you want to sell your cars there, and you've got to get to a certain set of rules and standards for California, you might as well make them apply to every other. Why would you make efficient cars for there and then some crappy cars for the rest of the world? So you just raise your game. So over the years, California has done us all a very, very big favour. GM is moving their Camaro chief over to EVs. Their chief engineer, General Motors, is moving over to their EV program. Al Oppenheiser is going to oversee the development of EVs at the biggest of the big three in Detroit, starting from January. The Detroit-based automaker doesn't have a lot of experience with EVs, of course. The EV1, we know how that ended, in a crusher. And finishing off with the Bolt. 2 crossovers based on the Bolt are in the pipeline for the not-too-distant future. Even Cadillac prepares to roll out an EV of its own. I don't talk about the Bolt enough on this podcast. Again, it's a car that we just can't get here. We would love one. Just can't get hold of it. The self-service Tesla rental is something many people have dreamed of, and now it's arriving in Luxembourg. Luxembourg-based startup UFO Drive, great name for a company, by the way, UFO Drive, have opened their first self-service rental car station in Germany. Drivers now rent and collect one of 6 Tesla Model S's at Hamburg Airport, and you do it all on the app. UFO Drives operates its EV-only fleets in Luxembourg and Brussels. According to Nora Manthe at the industry website Electrive, she says, in Hamburg, passengers can collect one of 6 Model S's from the UFO bay, and the company claims the process takes more than a few minutes. Instead of queuing at the counter, everything is handled using the company's app. I'll put a full link to electrified in the show notes. Is it just me? There is nothing worse that if you're travelling on business or holiday and you land and you need a hire car and you've pre-booked or anything like that, but then there's a queue and you're queuing at the hire desk and then you get there and maybe they're not ready, maybe they've got a different car to the one you wanted, maybe they say, we need a credit card for that £2,000 deposit we forgot to tell you about, and then when you get back they find all these dinks and bumps that you didn't do and they're trying to pin it on you. Hiring a car can be one of the most horrible experiences, which is why early next year on the podcast, one of the specials that I want to do, maybe even a series of programs, maybe we even start doing some YouTube stuff early next year as well, is about hiring EVs. Because I know there's a few companies, here in the UK at least, that are breaking the mold and doing it really well and actually making hiring EVs a pleasure. And that is important, I think, because when you first drive an EV, that's your light bulb moment. I can talk to you all day about it. You can watch YouTube videos all day. It's not until you get in one that it makes, that all the dots join up and you're like, right, well, I'm never going to drive anything else. I'm never going back to a fossil car. And so I think hiring an EV can be a taster, if you like. And so I want to dig into this early next year and find out about the companies in the UK doing it. And it's something that I'm really looking forward to doing. So congratulations to the Luxembourg company, UFO Drive, for simplifying getting a Tesla and doing it all on the app, which these days is how you want to do things. Well, Tesla patents are open, as we know, and now they've been granted a new patent for an AR-based system to build your Model 3. AR is augmented reality. Regular listeners know I always remind people Tesla isn't a car company. They're a Silicon Valley tech energy company that happens to make cars for now. They're using augmented reality, which is super clever software stuff, to make production faster and more efficient. And if you don't know what augmented reality is, I'll try and explain it again. My tiny brain will try and explain it. You know how sometimes on your mobile phone there's an app or something where you can open the camera app and you look at your phone screen and you point the camera down the street. And although the camera will show you a picture of the street, sometimes it can overlay things on it. It can augment things into the map in real time. That's augmented reality, right? As far as I understand it. Tesla's new patent uses augmented reality applications and computer vision to, what they say, I quote, identify an object of interest and the relationship between the user and the object, end quote. Now, this is all to do with when they're building cars, and at the minute there's lots of human processes involved, which humans are really good at, but they're doing things like placing templates over the car so that if pre-drilled holes have been put in, and they would just want to double check those holes are in the right place, they're taking these kind of plastic templates and holding them up against the car and making sure it all lines up. What if you did that with AR? The device captures a live view of an object, determines the location of the device and the type of the object that's of interest, and then the system, if you're using it to build cars, workers can have this instant data about the components they're working on. According to Simon Alvarez at Teslarati. I'll put a link in the article. Read more yourself if you're interested in that side of it. Another example of how this is moving on so quickly using really high-tech stuff. Final story today, in China's passenger vehicle sales have been shrinking for 6 consecutive months now. Data from the China Passenger Car Association showed today China is such an important market. That's why all the big car companies have joint ventures, because until recently you weren't allowed just to trade in China. You had to be part of a JV so that you could work with a local company and they would get that knowledge of your technology and things like that. Those rules are changing, by the way. And sales of new energy passenger vehicles, well, they're bucking the trend. A 57.8% rise last month, according to this report. 129,000 EVs sold last month. So as the car market shrinks, which is a major, major headache, by the way, for so many car companies, that is not something that is going to go down very, very well on any balance sheet. But if these car companies were making EVs for China, well, now you're talking. The world's largest auto market is the world's fastest growing market for EVs, thanks to government policies to boost clean energy use and to clean up that pollution. I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to find out more. Wow, a big day today. So many positive stories. I just get just such a buzz from reporting this. It feels like a really optimistic time, doesn't it? Thank you very much to myev.com for setting question of the week this week. And it's as we move into 2019 that we turn the question round to you. So here's the question that we're asking you. What's your question of the week? What should we be asking in 2019 on the podcast that thousands of people listen to every day and can chip in with? Why don't you pick it? So what's on your mind? What is your question of the week? You can tell us at myev.com, go to the research link at the top and then click on question of the week. You can email me personally and it's on my phone. And so when you email, I see it straight away and I always reply straight away if I possibly can. And, unless I'm either sleeping or doing something else with work. I just adore chatting to people about EVs. My personal email is hello@evnewsdaily.com and you can use that for question of the week as well. hello@evnewsdaily.com. Thank you to 132 patrons of the podcast. I didn't think we'd get 10, to be honest. When we started this a couple of months ago, I thought maybe 12, if we're lucky. 132 people bring you this news, and we help educate people all around the world about EVs. You never know. Maybe because of this podcast, a few people have gone and bought an EV. That'd be a nice thought, wouldn't it? If you want to join that number, patreon.com/EVNewsDaily, patreon.com/EVNewsDaily. We would love to have you as part of the gang, whatever you think it's worth. It's like $5 and $10 and upwards as well for companies. There are 323 previous episodes of the show, all online for free and always will be. Please leave a review if you possibly can. And if you want to hit subscribe on whatever your favourite platform is, well, then you get it first and free and automatically. In the meantime, come and say hi on the socials tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, and I will catch you tomorrow.